United again. Ready. A magnificent goal.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host this week, Nick.
I'm Colm.
And I'm Jamie.
So we're recording literally within minutes of the final whistle versus Crystal Palace. This is not going to be a pretty podcast, not the start to the season we were expecting or hoping for. But yeah, we're here anyway to record. I don't know where we should start really. Like I say, we've not had much time to digest what happened here. We've gone down 3-1. Colm, what's your immediate thoughts from the game there?
As you say, where do you start? I think we could probably run through every incident or every player and give them absolute dog's abuse, really, because I think that's what's deserved. During the game, I felt hugely frustrated throughout. I think it was obvious from very early on that it wasn't going to go the way we wanted, or it wasn't going to be the kind of performance that we wanted. I think something that is categorised this United team is being in a kind of a one-track mode, whereas we can very rarely, I think, lift our performance or change our performance. You kind of know what you're going to get sometimes from the outset, and I just think that comes down to squad depth. But after the final whistle, the frustration left me, and now I just feel sad.
It's a funny thing because, there's been a lot of negativity about our transfer window, and understandably so. Yeah, been very frustrating after a good end to last season to just come into the season with one proper signing. But I still felt that we had a lot to look forward to this season. We finished last season strongly. Bruno was in, Pogba was in, we were creating chances, we had a strong forward line. I mean, yeah, I did myself say we had some question marks over the defence, but I still thought it was decent enough. And so to have this kind of start is just an absolute killer. I mean, all right, we've had a very disjointed pre-season, and I guess there's going to be a lot of talk about that now. But is it really just down to that, Jamie? I mean, what do you think? Do you just put it down to our weird pre-season, or, what do you think is the main reason for this just frankly awful performance today?
I think there's a few things, to be honest. Regarding the performance, it's the worst performance I've seen us play since Burnley beat us 2-0 in January, and before Bruno played the first game for us. It was just shambolic. There was nothing to write home about at all, other than Van de Beek scoring on his debut. I just think a few things like the delay in the start of the season for us clearly hasn't helped, because I thought the first 15 minutes were just so bad. It was so sluggish, giving the ball away. Nobody was comfortable on the ball. They just looked like a team of strangers for the first 15 minutes. It was just incredible to watch how slowly we started. So I think the fact we've started a week later and Palace have now played 2 games, because if you include the League Cup game from during the week, they've played 2 games and they look really fit and really sharp and were excellent today for their win as well. I think a few things that have happened off the pitch during the summer and on the off-season haven't helped and have maybe played into the minds of the players a wee bit. Things like what Greenwood got up to, so that meant straight away he was in quarantine, so he's not been as fit as some of the other players. Maguire's had his problems. Wan-Bissaka was not playing because he only started training on Monday. So I think there's just a lot of things have just come together and just made it an awful performance. So I don't think you can point to one thing. I think there's quite a few things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a whole lot of things that have come in. Like I said, I'd been kind of arguing on Twitter to say, look, things are not that bad, even though we've not brought in the players we want. But, you just can't look at that kind of performance. And, last season, I remember early in the season, we lost to Palace at home as well. But I thought we actually played quite well and were just kind of a bit naive and undone by a kind of long ball. Whereas today, we've just been literally outplayed. We hardly had any chances. Yeah, okay, we scored 1 goal and there's the other couple of half chances here and there. But there's just no complaints whatsoever today. And that's a really frustrating thing. We did have a bad start to the season last year. Although, yeah, we did actually win on the opening day, so maybe this is the good kind of sign for us that last year we started really well and then went downhill. Maybe, yeah, we can go the other way this year after a bad start on the first day and turn it around from there. I mean, yeah, look, if we look at the starting lineup, we've done some polls, I just thought out of interest, before we started on Twitter about who we thought was going to start this game. And I was pretty surprised. Like I said, there's different players who've been training. Some players have come back late, but yeah, looking at the lineup, like I'd say James, McTominay, Fosu, Mensah were all kind of surprises in a way, really. I mean, I was actually just looking at some of the polls we had. Like only 10% of people thought James would start this game, 7% McTominay, only 3% of people were expecting Timothy Fosu Mensah to start this game. Even though there was question marks over Wan-Bissaka, I think everybody thought if he doesn't start, it's going to be Williams. But yeah, look, he started over this game. I mean, Colm, do you think those three players are the problem, or is it
No,
not
I don't
really
think
down
so
to
at
the
all.
lineup?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, Timbo, he wasn't awful, but he didn't do anything really worthwhile. One good cross, maybe for Greenwood. Energetic display. I thought positionally he was quite poor. I thought he was too narrow all the time when Dan James was on the pitch. But, he's not a player that played a whole pile of minutes. And I don't think he's a player that has any kind of future at Manchester United if we want to aspire to any kind of level. Likewise, Dan James. I wasn't surprised to see him starting with the Mason issues. I did expect Ole to kind of not even take a firm stance on that as punishment, but to just, I think, try and shield him from an immediate limelight kind of thing. And McTominay was a wee bit of a surprise. I wasn't aware Matic wouldn't, be in the squad at all, and I don't know what the reason for that is at the moment. But I think it really exhibited how Matic, or a player like Matic, is so vital to us because, despite a few decent defensive efforts, McTominay was just like a spinning top with very little quality on the ball, and him and Pogba I don't think look capable of forming any kind of partnership in the middle. But I wouldn't put it down to any of those three, and I'd put it much down more to the people who you expected to start having an awful game. But I couldn't pick out a player who did okay today, apart from Van der Beek, or Van der Beek, sorry, I should say. It was just abject from man to man, and I do think what Jamie said about the various different things that would factor into this being a less than ideal start to the season are all, of course, very credible. The corona issues, the fact that we've had positive corona tests with Pogba, the fact that Wan-Bissaka has been probably foolisher, I think, in his behaviour during the summer, certainly Mason, and just all these things, and the lack of a break, being put back an extra week, which I don't actually think we needed. I think we would have been better served starting last week, because it seems like the extra week just did nothing for us except put us now possibly 6 points, behind, and an early kind of pressure that we didn't need. But I'd rather park all those things, because for me, they exist and you're aware of them prior to the game starting, so you should be prepared for them. It's very easy now to look back and kind of whitewash that and say, oh, well, this and this and this and this. And to me, those are excuses. The team was poorly constructed, poorly set up tactically and coaching-wise, I think. And then to a man, they were awful, absolutely awful. And it just so much highlighted the lack of depth that we have, because Tim Fosu Mensah, not bad, but not what we need. Lindelof as a starting centre-back, probably not what we need. The midfield pairing for Pogba, not really where it's at. Rashford needs a month off football, and we have no one to play left wing if he's not available. And he's just going to keep playing this way, because that's been a good few months now with these injury concerns that he's had that he seems to be playing through. And I mean, he was as dire as anybody. But who else could you play? Who else could we play instead of Rashford?
For me, actually, James should be playing left wing. And, if he plays, I think there's been too many times now that he's played right wing and just shown that he's not comfortable there. He's not delivering, where he's actually had a couple of games for Wales in the meantime and done pretty well, as I understand, on the left side. And for me, he should be playing only coming on the left. And I don't really want to see him on the right anymore. I mean, talking about Greenwood, I actually do think that Ole is punishing him. Even though he's supported him very clearly publicly, I think he's absolutely seething about what has happened with Greenwood, because there was this slight kind of aberration in the middle of last season where he ended up on Snapchat or Instagram, whatever, with some girl, and he was left out a couple of squads at that point. And I think again, Ole is just telling him, listen, I do not want to see any of this stuff. I do not want to see you appearing on social media. You better be really careful. I mean, for me, that's the only possible reason, because there's no way he's getting rested, because he played half an hour for England and then was left out. He didn't play last week. So yeah, for me, it's the only reason that he's not started this game. And then yeah, for him to come on at half time just shows that Ole was like, look, all right, I wanted to kind of prove a point, but yeah, we need you now.
It's like a toothless tiger, because we're so threadbare that if you're starting Dan James, I'm sorry, with the Dan James right wing experiment. Now I'll give you that left wing as a glimmer of hope, but I just think anytime he starts for Manchester United, it's a damning indictment on our transfer business and our squad. Like, no harm to him because he tries hard. He is so negative in his play. He is so head down. He's completely lost the ability to beat a man. His delivery's poor, and 90% of anything he does is backwards. He had a shot on target from inside the box that looked like a 9-year-old hit it, and that just to me typifies everything about him. He's weak as a player. He's timid. He plays within himself. From coming to United, he started much more confidently and aggressively, and that just has shrunken and shrunken and shrunken, as it seems to do with quite a lot of players we purchase, who then, the longer they're at Old Trafford, sadly, the more they kind of come down to this level that we seem to culturally impose on players who in other leagues or in other clubs or in other areas, play quite differently, and that's such a big issue for me.
I was getting wound up by James as well, because I was fed up with the amount of times he was getting the ball in the wing, and his first thought is never take the man on. Never. It's always stop, start, come inside, run fast inside, and then stand on the ball, and then either pass the ball into the middle but behind him, or more or less directly back behind him to whoever the fullback is, or to wherever the centre half's standing. And the shot that Colm's on about, I even put it in the WhatsApp group chat for us, it just wound me up no end, because it's like the ball's loose. I'm not saying like leather the skin off the ball, but you can still hit the ball normally with a bit of pace.
Do you know his only thought in that moment, Jamie, is I just want to get this on target. I don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
I just want to. Just nice and easy, and it's just pointless. You can't be a Manchester United player playing like that. And I do have some sympathy for him. He shouldn't be our punching bag here today, and he shouldn't be any kind of scapegoat, because it's not his fault. It's Manchester United's fault that he has to play the amount of games he has to play, and arguably that he's at the club at all. At least off the left, when he cuts in on his right, he's on his favourite foot and he can do things. See, when he's on the right, he can't beat a man for pace. Mitchell had him in his back pocket anytime. When you know what you're going to get from him, is it just a push down the line and he's just going to try and nail it, or he's just going to play it back to a centre back. And when he does cut inside from the right, everything's on his left foot, which he hates, and he always has to play it with his right on kind of outside of the football, which is so obvious and so easy to defend. It's just, the fact that we keep persisting with that and thinking that we're going to get anything different, to me, is such an alarm bell. And I get there's no one else really to play, but why is that the case?
It's like headless chicken at times as well, though, because even when he actually then does find a yard, the crosses are just aimless. It's not even like, see, where it's chalk and cheese, but when Beckham used to cross the ball, it was because he was either looking exactly at one man and picking the man out, or he was picking an area out where he knew several players are coming in to attack that space. So get the ball in there, and okay, it might miss the first guy, but the second guy will get it, or the third guy will get it. Every cross that was coming in from James in the first half, and it was the same last season, is just aimless. It's as if it's just get it out my feet and get it in the box, and then it's not my problem after that. Just get it in the box.
Yeah, as I said, look, I think, we've all said on the last show that right wing is obviously an area top of the priority, and I don't want to mention him too much, but yeah, Jadon Sancho has obviously had a lot of minutes in our podcast over the last few weeks and few shows, basically, and yeah, we're still waiting for that. I know both of you have been extremely confident that he's still going to be a Manchester United player before the end of this window. I still think it may well happen, but yeah, who knows? There's obviously quite a disagreement between the two clubs on valuation, and whether that gets sorted out, we don't know. But I think we've all said that right wing is the kind of area that we need to, and this just shows it more than anything. As I said, for me, if James plays, he should be back up left side, because that's where he's more comfortable. I don't want to see him on the right again.
Yeah, totally. And just on, I don't want to turn this into a Jadon Sancho podcast, because that's not what it's about. It's pointless talking, any specifically about transfers when we have so much of the game to analyse. But the thing with Jadon Sancho is, if they're apart in the valuation, move on and sign someone else. I'd rather, because we're not getting Sancho next year. So all this kind of brigsmanship to not have a player in pre-season and for the first game of the season, which you've now dropped points as a result of, is if it's going to be over the difference of 10 million, and based on that, Dortmund will ask for even more, because now we have to go back to them in even more desperate need. And if they truly know that they're not going to go and get him this summer, but you have to buy someone else. It's just, and to me that's just, look, it's a regime thing. It's a common story over every transfer window. We delayed Bruno and then panic bought him in January. We took Maguire to the wire and Wan-Bissaka to the wire, and there's probably big question marks over those signings in general anyway now. It's typical of this United boardroom regime that is just looking so unhealthy and so rotten.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. That we've talked about for, well, I was going to say months, but yeah, more like years, about problems in the back room. We've always talked about the big issue about we don't have a director of football. Where a year ago that was a big theme, that we're going to get a director of football. There's going to be a big change. But then there was some kind of positivity in the last couple of transfer windows, that we felt some good players came in, at least the right kind of characters, even if they're not like world class, but they came in and did well and definitely improved us. And I did feel that we were going in some kind of right direction. But again, in this window, it's been like very frustrating. I mean, I have been one to say that, look, let's at least wait till the end of the window.
Yeah.
Because like you say,
Yeah.
Colm, it's been a pattern for
Yeah.
us, window after window,
Totally.
that we've done our
Yeah.
business late. It happened last season.
Yeah.
It happened in the January window. It happened the year before that. That for whatever reason, that just we seem to be happy to leave it till the last minute. And I know why. It's because we've got bankers and accountants in charge who think that if we leave this late, it's like a poker game and we're going to save 10 million quid in the transfer market because we leave it till the last week of the season or something like that. But at the same time, we say you don't have players who have time to integrate. You don't have them in pre-season. So yeah, there's definitely a big negative to that. But I've kind of become resigned. This is just the way we're going to do our business until there's a massive change in the kind of boardroom.
Yeah, and I think it's a conversation that should be parked until October 5th anyway. We can obviously raise the points as every game passes before then, that players could make a difference if they had been signed earlier, but ultimately you can only judge the window when it's finished. It's kind of pointless talking about it beforehand.
That's
yeah,
true. That's
there is
true.
still a couple of weeks left on that win, and then there is even a couple of weeks after that where there's still an extension on the domestic window. The international window finishes October 5th. I think it's October 16th that there can still be kind of domestic transfers going on, which is a big difference to last year, if you remember, when they closed the window before the first game of the season started. So even though Maguire was like a late signing, it was still before our first match, whereas this year it's gone back to being kind of a few matches in.
If we can't get Sancho, we should sign that fella Zaha.
Yeah.
But just on the transfer window though, Gary Neville spoke about it at the end of the game, where he said, if you look back over the last 7 years, last year doesn't count because it closed early, but if you look over the years since Sir Alex left, if we've started the season poorly, so say after 2 games or 3 games, and there's been a loss, or there's been 2 losses, or a draw and a loss, we end up mega active in the transfer market anyway.
Yeah,
so we end up having a really bad start under LVG. We never bought a forward. Everybody knew that summer we need a forward, and it eventually went right down to the end of the transfer window. We signed Martial. There was the summer then we bought, I think it was Daley Blind, Marcus Rojo, and I can't even remember who else, but we bought 4 players in something like the last 2 days of the window.
There was the time as well. I think Falcao came in on the last day of the window.
And Di Maria came in at the end as well. You can't keep doing that. You cannot keep waiting until the last minute thinking the price might come down or demands might change. You have to be far more proactive. Otherwise,
it is basically it's the equivalent of going into your supermarket and looking for those yellow bargain labels on the last day, right?
Yeah, it
things
is.
that are reduced at the last minute. That's exactly where we're shopping, and that's the way that our people in charge seem to think that is the best way to go about it. Let's go and get
that's it. Nick,
yellow
you
label
live by the sword.
bargains.
You live by the sword, you die by the sword. And if you're coming out with an old stinky green joint of ham, then you're the one who left it so late. That's just the way it is. But just the last thing on the transfer window, because obviously it's just relevant now. Obviously, Ed's spoken quite a lot about coronavirus. That keeps coming up, and the financial security of the club and that being the club's priority and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of like frustrated to hear that, because I don't think we are in a challenging... Well, we are in a challenging financial position, but nowhere near what the likes of other clubs are facing. And we are, globally, I think, extremely secure as a club financially. So I just don't think that should be an issue, particularly when you want to compound the success that we've had recently and kind of turning the ship around as far as our on-the-pitch performances go. And throughout the entire summer, you had Klopp coming out and saying very similar things, really toeing the line with Liverpool's ownership, saying, look, we can't do what other clubs can do. We're not Chelsea. It's not a sweet shop for us. We have to, play in the real world, basically. And then over the last week, they've signed Thiago for 30 million, Jota for 40, 2 incredibly shrewd signings that are going to take, I'm quite sure, a team that was looking like it might just be starting to decline and just give it that little bit of vim and vigor that they need, and that little bit of difference making that they previously haven't had to I'm quite sure dominate again this year. And it's just like, it's just so frustrating to see other clubs act so
decisively,
cleverly, and efficiently. And it's not, neither of those signings are going to cost what Jadon Sancho would cost. And yes, they're a different club to us, in a different position to us, with a different pull, having just won the league and previously won the Champions League and all that kind of stuff. We were in for Thiago, we chose Liverpool, whatever, all that stuff. But there's players out there, like, leaving aside Jadon Sancho for a moment, there are 30, 40, 50 million pound players out there who would immediately walk into our team and improve us and give us that depth across the pitch that we so desperately need. And it's just disheartening, It's just, and it's a disservice to Ole, who has done a good job.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing, that after finishing that season, getting that third place, that he does need to be backed. As I will say, let's wait till the end of the window till we totally judge. But yeah, either way, it's still frustrating. And yeah, I do understand why there's a lot of fallout, a lot of people upset online, Woodward out, Glazer out is kind of trending all around. And yeah, I'm not surprised. Sometimes it does slightly annoy me that these kind of things are only thrown about in the transfer window, because for me, actually, Woodward out should be something that's sang like every week, all year round. That he's like been a common theme in like problems in the club since Fergie left. Talked in detail on here about director of football, about when you have somebody who's in charge of things that is not really his forte. We've heard as well, like, it's more interesting when you hear, Louis van Gaal recently comes out with a lot of talk about what was going on within the club, and he said, look, it didn't feel to me the same, because he's been at Barcelona, he's been at Bayern Munich, and he said, the way things happen at Manchester United are not the same. You do feel that it's more of a business than a football club, and that is the whole theme that really is the problem over there. But at the same time, we still spend money, and I wouldn't even say the amount of money we've spent over years is the issue. It's just always been when we spend it, who we spend it on, how things are kind of done. It's not really about how much is spent, because we've spent shitloads of money in the transfer market in the last 5-7 years, whatever. It's just like the vast majority of it has been wasted. But, in the last year or so, we thought there was kind of signs of the better decisions being made, but this summer it's again, Van der Beek is a great signing at a good price, will definitely improve us, but it's not enough. It was the same kind of themes that we were talking about last summer. We said, look, these signings are good, but it's not enough. You still need another couple of, especially, and then the other thing as well is, like, I think we all expected 3 or 4 players were going to be leaving this summer. And, somebody like Chris Smalling, that was surely the easiest transfer to sort out, to get some cash in. If we're struggling for money and we need some in, how easy can it be that he's gone on loan somewhere, they want to keep him, we want to get rid of him? I'm sure they're only haggling over a few million here and there. It can't be a big difference, but yet he's still not gone there, and he's still officially our player at the moment. But anyway, look, as I say, right wing, we all know, is the area we need to improve. I've been saying all summer that my top priority after that is centre back, and yet again I find Lindelof wanting, and a major weak link in our team today. I threw a poll out on Twitter on whose fault was that first goal, and for me, the main culprits are either Lindelof or Shaw, although definitely you can look at the whole defence in general, and I think 65% of people have said it's Lindelof's fault, which I'd more or less agree with. But yeah, it's a collective mess up. But I mean, Colm, who do you think is to blame for that first goal there?
For me, I think it's 80% Lindelof. I think the replay makes Shaw look bad, don't get me wrong, and it's not good defending, but the Shaw even becoming involved in that sequence of play should never happen, really, essentially. I think Lindelof, sometimes Lindelof defends in a way that is very pleasing. He can be such a clever defender, and he is decent on the ball. However, what you are always going to get with him is this passiveness, and that's part of his strength, but it's also a huge weakness. He's very much wanting to run players down certain alleys and not commit to things. He never wants to get sold and beaten, but that means he's not necessarily proactive, and he is just passive. And that's exactly what you saw here. And he's just physically weak and slow, essentially. So all game long, and particularly for the goal, they were able to just bully him. Even if he had a 10-yard head start, you were never confident in him with his running towards his own goal. And it just, for the goal, I mean, you have to make some effort to stop that ball coming across. But he's happy for it to come across. Now, he might think it's an empty penalty box. Townsend really sneaks in. But to be honest, I think that's just his usual, bye, he sticks a foot in. 100% bye, he sticks a foot in. So for me, it's 80% Lindelof, that goal. I think Harry Maguire shows, the goal really typifies why those two do not work, and both the feelings that they each possess. Lindelof gets run down a channel, is slow to go with his man, and is then extremely passive in not making a challenge. And Harry Maguire's about 10 yards back where he should be, and by the time he tries to run back, he's too slow, he can't make it. And that's just the issue you have. And the big issue more generally for us is the kind of football we're playing now, where we do want to dominate possession and play high up the pitch. It couldn't be worse. You saw today, Palace could have scored. I'm not joking when I say 7 or 8 goals on the counter today. Like, it was ridiculous how easy their front three were able to run at our back two, our back three so often. And every time, only for their own lack of quality. They're pacey, but they're not actually the most quality front three. So only for their own lack of quality were we bailed out. There wasn't really any great defending on display at any points. It was always just thanks for that bad touch or that poor shot. But the amount of times they were able to drive into our box and find space for themselves was frightening. And again, I mentioned it at the top of the show, just highlights how much Matic is a huge miss for us, which is a real concern. But I agree, Nick, the centre-back looks like a bigger issue after that game than I thought it was in the summer. I am excited to see Tuanzebe and indeed Menge come through, but we need more than that. Truthfully, we need more than that. If Badashile or Abakama were at all available today, I would spend money to go and get them, because Eric Bay ain't going to do it. Probably Chris Smalling's going to come into contention if he doesn't go to Roma, because I guarantee if he's partnered with Maguire today, yeah, we don't move the ball as well, but he would have done much better defensively on all those breakaways.
We've all said it.
Yeah,
for
it's actually
ages,
interesting. As I said, did this poll here, and actually a lot of people do want Chris Smalling to come back into the team after kind of, impressing in Italy. I don't really see it. I think Ole's kind of just resigned to him leaving. And in a way, I think that's fine, because in a way you're kind of moving on from that. But I would give Eric Bailly running the team now. Not that I'm super convinced by him, but I just think that we've seen enough times from Lindelof that he's not the one. That it's time to give somebody else a chance. So I want to see Eric Bailly being given a run in the team and see if he can iron out some of those kind of mistakes and brain farts that he sometimes comes out with, and see.
I don't think he will, and I don't think he'll stay fit, but I do agree. But so it's like, it's not the solution, but it is probably justified, and I would expect him to come in next week for Lindelof.
And yeah, it does go down to a big question. In fact, we had this question on Twitter as well. Cantonar's Collar, who's a fan of ours and a listener, had talked about partnerships in the team and how it just kind of seems to be lacking at some time. So yeah, we're talking about the central defensive partnership there. And then if we look at the midfield, I think you said, Colm, that Pogba and McTominay have never really seemed to hit it off, have they? Whereas I do actually sometimes see Pogba and Matic always seem comfortable, seem to work well together, and somewhere we need to find the right kind of balance there. I was pretty surprised to see McTominay start this game out of all the options we had there. I think a lot of people thought, just because he's come in, that we might start with Van der Beek, Pogba and Bruno, but I just knew that was never going to happen. There had to be some kind of defensive player in there. And to see McTominay start it, and Jamie, last time, I know you talked about his performances for Scotland and said he hadn't done very well, although yeah, he was kind of playing out of position. But do you think it's his fault? Is he out of position? This McTominay still has this question mark over what actual type of midfielder is he. But yeah, out of the two, I actually thought McTominay did all right. It was actually Pogba who was clearly struggling. He's had coronavirus. He's come back into training, I think, just on Monday. And this has been the big issue. Few players have only been training a few days this week. Pogba definitely one of them, even Bruno as well, and both of them look way off it today, right? Neither of them were anyway. I actually bought Bruno into my fantasy football team this week and even made him captain.
So did I.
So I'm doubly gutted over there.
Oh.
But out of those kind of three in midfield, Jamie, where can we go from there?
I said, as you said, about the Scotland performances, he was played out of position, so you have to give him a lot of rope for that. But at the same time, everything about his performance for Scotland was just terrible. It was passing was awry. He just didn't look confident at all. Short for tackling, everything was just poor. So off the back of those two performances, I was amazed to see him starting today. I put in my predictor, I put Matic in because I didn't actually realise, but Matic is in quarantine right now, and I didn't realise that. So even if I'd have known that, I still wouldn't have put McTominay in. I would have put Fred in because
Yeah, but
just
Fred's also only just come back into training on Monday, and I think McTominay's literally started just because he's had a bit more of a pre-season than anybody else, and I think that is the only reason he starts there.
even then for me though, like after, as Colm says, you can watch Man United for 15 minutes and know how the game's going to go. Watching McTominay for 15 minutes, it was like he's doing nothing here that's helping us out. Every pass that he played was short or behind players. His positioning was terrible. His attempts at tackling at times was terrible. Granted, he made 2 or 3 in the second half, but his first half performance was shocking. Absolutely shocking. And then Pogba was terrible as well, but Pogba's, as we know, has obviously had coronavirus, maybe hasn't trained as long, so he certainly, by the time he came off, he needed a break. But when he went off, I was begging for McTominay to go off as well, purely just because I just thought he was abysmal today. I mean, I like him and I'm a big supporter of him, and I think he's got a lot of good, but I just think at the moment his confidence must be rock bottom because I just can't see what he's bringing to performances whatsoever.
I don't think it's about confidence. I've actually said myself that I hope Scott McTominay can change his game and maybe adapt himself to be a Matic replacement. But as time goes on, it looks less and less likely.
Yeah.
And I think his best position probably is actually more of like a number 8. He's not really going to be a sitting midfielder. His passing range is not good enough. He has a good engine. He has a good shot. And look, he can be a good squad player, but I think he's not really suited to coming into like where Matic is. And Fred probably is a better option if we need a backup over there. But again, I don't actually know why Fred only came back to training on Monday because I don't think he's on international duty or anything like that.
He's getting married.
Married for like the 3rd time or something, right?
No, just to comment on that. I didn't think McTominay was good. I didn't have him down as anywhere near the worst performers. I think outside it, I thought Martial was okay. Started with attention. I thought Bruno tried a bit, but just gave away the ball too much. I thought Shaw was maybe passable in possession. But beyond that, I thought there were a lot of worse performers than Scott McTominay. I do agree. I just think there's a big tactical issue and a coaching. I'm gonna go down this route again, Nick. I think there's a big coaching issue still. You know, you watch Matic play over that stint where we were 14 games unbeaten or whatever at the end of the last season in the Premier League, and it's so obvious what Matic does for the team. And okay, you know, I don't think McTominay will ever be as good on the ball as Matic is. That ship has sailed. He has other qualities that are very like what Matic can do. He clearly doesn't have the reading of the game, but he's playing this box-to-box role alongside Pogba. I just look at them both in a pair and think, what were you told to go out and do? Like when the coaches work with you during the week or before the game and they say, hey guys, here's what we're going to go for. I'm like, is that conversation even happening? You know, I'm sure we've all been watching the Spurs documentary and getting an insight into just how banal football tactics really is at the top level, which is galling for Mourinho. But I wonder, are we any different? Because it's just like, here fellas, do you know what? Two yous, see that big circle in the middle of the pitch? That's where you play and do whatever the hell you want beyond that. It's like, I just don't see any kind of partnership. I don't see any kind of plan for the midfield. I don't see it for the flanks. I don't see it for the forwards. I just about see it for the defenders and the general kind of in possession style that we want. But it's like, which one of you is sitting and which one of you is going? It's just, hey fella, are you going? All right, I'll go. Am I going to go this time? Will you go? Okay. One of them is a much better defender than the other one. One of them is a much better attacker than the other one. It should be pretty straightforward to me. I think McTominay could sit and do a good job. Maybe he's just not following that instruction. Maybe he just doesn't have the ability to do it. I do agree that he hasn't got the quality to build the play from the back. But I'm not sure we need to do that. Our centre-backs are so high anyway. All we need to do is when we have the balls, have him sit. And I think he would immediately look a much better player because he could just pick up those scrap balls. Those balls that always seem to be dropping to Ayew, that always seem to be dropping to Zaha, because our centre-backs aren't, Van Dijk, they're not going to come out and challenge a player. If they do, they just foul them in the back. Essentially, that's all you ever see from them. So you want Matic to do that, and he does that really well. McTominay could do that, but is he being told to do that? Like, it doesn't look like it to me. They both just were meandering around doing whatever they want with no plan whatsoever. And that then extends to the rest of the team. I mean, I think we just have two of the most malfunctioning flanks in world football for a top team. And like, I mean, I'll give it over to you, but Rashford, awful.
Oh
Shaw,
my God.
awful.
The
I mean, Tim
Yeah, and
Fosu shouldn't be on the pitch, and Dan James shouldn't be on the pitch. How? And then it just makes a team like Crystal Palace, who have two banks of four and just love sitting in. And like, did you see the game today? If you took the flanks off the pitch, all of the entire 20 players, outfield players, were in that middle patch. And how easy is that to defend again? And then we say, oh, Pogba had a terrible game, Bruno had a terrible game, Martial had a terrible game. They were surrounded by 8 players all the time because we just don't play down the wing with any kind of quality or any kind of plan. It's absolutely diabolical. And
How many times do you see teams do that against us though? Like it's constant. The ball goes out wide to Wan-Bissaka or Shaw, and they just leave them. They're not even interested in going and closing them down because they just know fine well. Well, you're only going to go by even our winger to then try and beat
Mitchell,
the next man
our left back. Yeah, exactly.
to try and cross the ball. So they just let them have the ball because they just know we're not good enough on the flanks to do anything. We aren't.
And then we're totally reliant on a piece of magic through the middle.
We have like very little excuse because Shaw and Rashford have played quite a lot together. Rashford was injured, didn't play for England. Shaw was also kind of injured, but they both played last week against Villa, so they've had some kind of pre-season. On the right side, there's a bit more excuse. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Timothy Fosu Mensah and James have ever started a game together before that I can remember. If they have, it's like once or twice. So there's some kind of excuse over there. But on the left side, by now, you would think there was some kind of partnership formed between Shaw and Rashford. And it just hasn't really happened over there at all. There is definitely a big question mark over kind of partnerships on the field and where they're kind of coming. Look, if we switch over to that, there is obviously this talking point on the second goal, the penalty, which was an absolute farce for me. I mean, in the end, it's not been the reason we've lost this game. But yeah, we still have to talk about it. When you're watching the commentary and even Graham Souness is saying that wasn't a penalty, then there's no way that should have been a penalty. And then to actually bring it back again and even retake it was just, I can't even understand. Last season we all talked about how poor VAR was, but we said, first season, things will get better as people get used to it. But yeah, we started this season with even worse bloody decisions than we had last year. I mean, was there anybody on telly? Was there anyone out there who thought this should have been a penalty? And was there anybody being asked for it to be retaken? That was the thing. You see that Palace players, they weren't even asking for a penalty. And they weren't asking for it to be retaken either. That's when you know that why on earth would they even come and get involved in these things? Just bizarre. I mean, again, it's not the reason we've lost it, which kind of makes it a bit better in a way. But yeah, we still have to talk about that. I mean, Jamie, can you give any kind of rationale to how this penalty and retake has been given there?
Nope. None whatsoever. Because even Gary Neville said it, like, as they were reviewing the penalty, he was sitting there and he was like, this can't be a penalty. Because what on earth is the defender meant to do then? So if he's got to go and close the gap, he's already a metre away, maybe less. So if he's literally sprinting, and if anybody has ever sprinted before, they know fine well your hands move, like forward and back. So if he's literally running to close the angle, he's a metre away from the defender, probably closer than that. Sorry, from the attacker. He's not even looking. You can actually see as the ball hits his arm, he actually kind of moves his head because he's reacting to how close the ball is to him. And so I just thought, when I was watching it, I was like, nah, no way this can be a penalty. Then John Moss, I don't even know why he has to say to the referee, yeah, go and have a look at it because it's a bit contentious. It's like, no, it's not. It's not even contentious in the slightest. So then when Mark Clattenburg went and looked at it, you're still sitting going, this can't be a penalty. I have no idea how he can give this. And then for him to turn around and give that as a penalty, I just thought was absolutely ludicrous. And if that's now the rule, that any time it hits your hand anywhere in the box, there'll be about 15 penalties a weekend across the Premier League. And then this thing about goalies is baffling, because at the end of the day, if you get a penalty, right, the advantage is with the attacker. You've literally got a penalty kick from 12 yards at the goal. So now you're saying to the goalie, right, you cannot move from your line. So it's already making a hard thing to do, which is save the penalty. It's making that even harder because now you're not allowed to move. You just have to stand still on the line until literally their player has kicked the ball. And I get it. I get it for if by the time the guy kicks the ball, the keepers say on the 6 yard line because they've come so far off the line. De Gea's feet, if it was an inch, that's how far off the line he was. So he still has to be at full stretch, still saves it and keeps it out at full stretch. So that being retaken, I mean, it's the same as the VAR ruling where offsides were given last year and we were saying, right, where's the line? Where do you say that's offside and it isn't? And they were still calling ones that were millimetres, they were calling them as offsides. It's sort of the same thing where they just say, right, well, he's off his line by whether it's a millimetre or an inch, doesn't matter, he's off his line. But that has to be looked at. You have to say, surely you can't encroach maybe 3 yards, because just coming off by such a small distance.
Yeah, I mean, one of his feet was still on the line. Like, I can understand it when a goalie is like way clear of the line, has blatantly come out too early. I can understand it, and we've seen it in penalty shootouts. You know, it kind of started in that. I think it was the 2018 World Cup where they kind of brought this in, wasn't it? And we kind of saw it there happen a few times. But like one of his feet was pretty much still on the line. The other one was like, I don't know, like you say, a few inches or something off, which is why. And it was like the Palace players weren't asking for anything.
No.
The match was going on. Nobody was even considering. All of a sudden, they pull it back and say, right, you're going to take the penalty again. Just absolute like mentalness.
I think
really.
the thing is, it just puts you off football in a general
does,
sense
yeah.
because it just becomes this circus of a thing that no one wants to deal with. I mean, I was so dead set against VAR. I always said I like bad decisions in the heat of the moment because that's just part of football and it's, you know, a talking point. And it was a talking point because there was always oh well, it's human error, and that's okay. You know, humans make mistakes. They don't see things. They maybe get things wrong, and that's fine. But see this totally robotic, rigid application of already stupid rules. I mean, you're creating these black and white rules for extremely grey situations and completely removing any kind of critical thought or craft in regards to what a referee assesses as a foul or offside or whatever else. And it's so soul destroying as a football fan because it's just sterile and robotic and dumb. Anyone who's played football, anyone who, you know, if you say to a player, if you say to Victor Lindelof, you have to run, but watch out for your arms, and he's like 5 yard, like not even a meter, you know, not even a meter away, what is Victor Lindelof meant to do? Is he meant to not run and just let IU go ahead and score? And what's De Gea meant to do? He's not allowed to run until the ball. He's not allowed to move off his line until the ball's halfway to the net, and he never ever. I mean, he never saved a penalty anyway, and he was cruelly robbed of a penalty save that we never thought we'd see him make, Manchester United, because he can't take a half step to either side, whilst the attacker is allowed to stutter a run up. You know, so it's just ridiculous. It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's like the people in charge just have no concept of how football actually goes and what it's like to play football or watch football or indeed any tether to any amount of common sense. I mean, I just can't imagine there isn't a complete uproar about that, but they won't change. They love making rules and then they will never back down. They won't admit any kind of mistake. They won't try and lose face. They'll just rigidly stick to this dumbass system that is just an absolute drain on the game. The only thing I would say is we deserve nothing from that game, and in the totally apathetic state I was in at the 60th minute or whenever this happened, I was like, do you know what, good, don't even care. Like, and when the third goal went in, I was like, yep, this is exactly what should be happening. So, you know, don't let that controversy mask what was such an awful performance from Manchester United, is what I'm saying.
I agree
Yeah,
with
well,
that.
look, let's look at the one kind of bright spark from the game, which is Donny van der Beek, whatever. I'm gonna call him the Beek from now on, right? That's what he's officially called, is the Beek. And he's the one kind of positive from the game. Comes on, gets his debut goal, joins an illustrious list of United players to score on their debut, including Paul Scholes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ruud van Nistelrooy. There's actually quite a few of them. More recently, even Martial and Rashford both scored on their debuts. But yeah, a lot of people were hankering for a start this game. I didn't expect him to. Just come in and see him score straight away was really good. I mean, Colm, what did you make of that kind of, what did he have, half an hour basically as he came in there?
I thought he looked super sharp. I thought he looked far better than anyone else. And again, Nick, I appreciate you're trying your best. I don't want to drag this back to a negative thing, but again, it shows me how players kind of sink at Old Trafford sometimes, because even players who last year looked super exciting, we kind of lose that immediate. I wish we could kind of bottle that energy that debutants seem to have at United, and kind of give it to them 6 months down the line again, because there does seem to be a regression sometimes at United for new signings, but hopefully that won't be the case here. He looked super sharp. He's just, everything's one touch. He wants to move everything forward very quickly. He's popping up in lots of good positions. You can see all those runs. He's like everything you want Jesse Lingard to be, or everything you thought Jesse Lingard might be, but actually just better at football, and just better in general, I think. The passing's so crisp. He has little rules. He's always wanting to play people in. He wants to do that interplay, which I think with Martial will work extremely well, because he loves to have people to play off in tight spaces. And he's just super clever with it. Looked really positive, and wanted to G everyone up and get us going, because even in spite of being 1-0 down, 3-1 down, whatever else, no one seemed particularly bothered, and everyone was kind of playing at half pace throughout the entire game, and he was a real shot in the arm. Really, really tidy finish, very instinctive, and just shows you, he's kind of been likened to that Lampard effect of just kind of always arriving in the right place, making these late runs, third man runs. And I think that's just really obvious that he will definitely do that. I said when he signed, there was a lot of talk about where he plays and where he'll fit, and I just said, you won't be able to know where he'll always play, but he'll always play. He's just one of those players you'll always find room for in your team. I'd start him on right wing ahead of Dan James every day of the week. And he might not be any use as a right winger, but he'd be more valuable on the pitch than Dan James, because he'll just drift into space and find things to involve himself with, and really play off Bruno and Martial and Pogba really well again. So he's a great sign, and he's an absolutely great sign. He just deserves more around him, and hopefully we get that.
Yeah, it's an interesting suggestion actually for him to play right wing, because we know it's a big question mark of us. And a couple of years ago, Juan Mata was starting pretty regularly in that position and putting out some pretty decent performances. So there's actually no reason why he couldn't play there. But it's not what we want, right? We want a
No, it's not
proper
what we
winger.
want. The other option is Bruno plays right wing for Portugal, I think, because they have a very odd system trying to fit all their best players in, essentially. There's other options there, but that's for Ole to be creative about, and I do believe that just having the best 11 out is the best thing, and that does not include Dan James. Again, I don't want to keep beating on Dan James, because he's not, it's not his fault or anything like that. But Donny, Bruno, Pogba, they're players that you can probably pop them pretty much anywhere, and they'll likely not do a bad job.
It will be interesting. Ole was asked this question in the press conference that, can you ever play Donny, Pogba, Bruno in the same team? And he said, yeah, I'm sure we will see them all in the same team at the same on some match. Obviously, it wasn't this game. But yeah, there is different options going on there, and especially in games where maybe we don't need a sitting midfielder. We don't see why it can't happen over there. I've seen even like Edwin van der Sar said that he's versatile enough that if he needs to play number 6 in a more defensive role, he can do it. I've seen other people as well suggesting that maybe Pogba can play that kind of more holding role. I mean, I've got a few question marks whether he has that kind of defensive discipline to do that. It's definitely not his perfect role, but yeah, I'm sure he can do a job over there if needed. So yeah, at some points, I would not be surprised to see all three of them starting at all. And yeah, that kind of right wing. Hopefully, we're not forced to play him in that right wing, and we can still get Sancho or somebody else in before the end of this window and have some better option to be given, and not just be relying on Mason Greenwood every time coming in over there. See where it goes. I mean, yeah, we straight away go into a League Cup game on, I think, Tuesday against Luton Town. Not played them since pre-Premier League days, basically. I think back then they were still playing on a plastic pitch. I don't know if you two guys remember that, but these were the days. Luton Town were actually a Division 1 team and used to have an artificial pitch back then. But yeah, we'll go over there on Tuesday. I'm sure it'll be mostly players who didn't play today will get some minutes. And then we've got Brighton next weekend, basically, who actually, played pretty well, I thought, against Chelsea last week, and were pretty unlucky to lose that game. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to be an easy match either, basically. And pretty quickly, we need to turn this around. Like, a bad start to the season. Ole was especially talking about how we needed to get a good start to the season to make up for, all last year we were basically playing catch-up, right? We do not
Yeah.
want to get into that situation this season when there's even like Arsenal are surely going to be better, Tottenham going to be better. So there's no way we can start this season badly and be having to like struggle to be catching up again. Um,
Definitely not.
hopefully,
However, we smashed Chelsea 4-0 on the first day of the season, and then they led us the entire season. And sometimes I think that shot in the arm, it's like conceding in the fourth minute. You're rather conceding the fourth minute than the 60th minute. And that's the only positive thing I could say is it's quite a humbling defeat. It's certainly a statement, and I would hope that would force the board into action, Ole into action, and the players into action in terms of a response, and better in the first game of the season than, any later in.
I think it will. I think it will give everyone a kick up the backside, to be honest. I mean, I've just had a look there, and Solskjaer said after the game that every player has to have a look at themselves in the mirror because every one of them knows they can perform far better than that. He also said you can see where we are short and they deserve the points. So, don't know if that's maybe a dig back at Woodward, because I saw Woodward in the programme notes mentioning that the coronavirus pandemic's having a massive effect on finances, and it's like, that's just not washing anymore. Not when you're seeing every other rival strengthen and go for players that are giving them better depth and giving them a better living. So I just think after this performance today, I think the players and the manager, they'll definitely have had a kick up the backside, but at the same time, the board has to do something in this last fortnight, because it has been a shambolic transfer window, to say the least. Not just from the point of view of bringing players in, but just having a look at like some of the players who are still here. Guys like Rojo, Smalling, Phil Jones, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata, Andreas Pereira. There's just so many players that I thought there would have been some sort of movement with this summer, and there's just been nothing at all.
yeah, I mean, some of those, I don't think we'd get a lot of money in at his kind of age. Juan Mata, I can't see anybody taking much of a gamble on Phil Jones, but Smalling, Rojo, Dallo, Pereira, Romero, who now is clearly surplus to requirements. You've got a minimum of like 50 million quid's worth of, probably more, 60 million quid's worth of players over there, and maybe even, Jesse Lingard, who must be worth another 20 or something like that, bare minimum. So yeah, like, even if you're really struggling for money, just move these players on.
Sell
I
the
mean,
players
that's
on,
that's the thing. Get rid of them and like bring in like one or two players where we need. That's the bizarre thing, that even if you're like struggling to bring somebody in, and I can understand that in a COVID era to make like a signing like Sancho at 100+ million quid is not like
Yeah.
an easy thing to do. Yeah, and I can
Yeah.
understand that. But as you said earlier, Colm, there must be another option. And yeah, all right, I don't know. I don't want to start getting into names, but we're linked to whether it's Sarr at Watford, Perisic, a couple of other names are like mentioned here and there. That if it's not going to happen, then bring somebody else in, and like let's see where we go from there, really. But I still do expect that we will make at least 2 more signings before the end of this window. I'll be like amazed if it doesn't, and I'm sure there'll be 2 or 3 who leave as well in the next couple of weeks. That's why I still, we did try to do kind of predictions, whatever, on the last show, but I always say, look, until the window's closed, until you know what we're going into the season with, it's kind of difficult to really say what you're predicting there. But yeah, Colm, you went on the last one, and we were all kind of talking about third place. Maybe if we make a couple of signings, we can start pushing towards even second place. I mean, what's your expectation for the season?
It's just so tough. I think it's going to be such a difficult season with fixture congestion and coronavirus and stuff like that, that immediately they're quite out of the window. Before today, I would have said fourth. And today doesn't change that. It's a super long season. I think we can be too rash today. Even if we were to make no signings, I would still be so disappointed if we weren't hanging around fourth. I mean, I don't think Arsenal have a better squad than us, even as it stands. I think Arteta's just got them playing really well. I don't think Everton have a better squad than us as it stands, even though they're the new hot property in town. I think Chelsea will probably pull away from us this year. I think we'll be still scrapping for fourth at the very end of the season, whereas I think a lot of us thought maybe we'd be closer to the top 2 than the fourth position, But I don't see that this year. I don't see character in this squad at all. I think Bruno brings a tremendous amount of character. You saw him absolutely bollocking Lindelof in the Europa League semi. Semi. But I think beyond that, I think today was another indication that some of the players we have who are very patchy, I really question the mentality of the team. I think Rashford needs a big long break from football. I think Martial, if he's not involved in the game, is largely useless, even though he's brilliant when you can involve him. Right wing's a huge issue. Defensively, I don't think we have good character and good quality. So to me, there's still flaws in this team, and I think we're going to see another up and down season. So I think I'd take fourth right now, to be honest.
I'm more positive than you for sure. That I think that our first 11 is a damn good first 11, and we didn't see our first 11 today because there's still players coming out from quarantine, still players who've not trained and that kind of thing. But yeah, our first 11 would have Aaron Wan-Bissaka in it, Greenwood would start, Matic is in it, and I think that first 11 is a damn good team and can give anybody a good game on the day. And as the areas that can be improved.
It's on their day though, Nick. That's the thing.
No, any day.
I don't disagree
any day,
with. I don't disagree with what you're saying. Yeah, I agree.
That first 11 can play damn well, for sure, but it's not enough
across a 40 game season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and as you know, my main bugbear is the defence. I still think that Lindelof is going to cost us points again and again and again, and it's an area that we definitely need to be improving in. That's my kind of worry. And then after that, you need that kind of backup that, Van der Beek gives us backup, but we need some other attacking kind of option in there. But yeah, look, let's see. I think we will record again probably before the end of the window. We'll come back after that Brighton game next week, and hopefully we've had at least one, if not two, reinforcements before then, and then we can really kind of assess where we're at. But yeah, look, I think obviously it's been an awful start to the season. I was still, even with all the negativity around the transfer window, I saw quite a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm not looking forward to this season. We've not backed the manager." And I was the one who was trying to say, "Listen, we've still got a damn good team. Like, we finished last season so well. We've been unbeaten, blah de blah." And like, we've immediately thrown that out the window. And
but it's one game. It's one game. We shouldn't we shouldn't draw firm conclusions from one diabolical game.
No, totally. It was the same. Like as you said, we started last season by absolutely smashing Chelsea, and then it went downhill from there. So let's hope it's going to go the other way, that we start awfully, and then we can go on one of these kind of runs that Ole has managed to pull out every now and again with 10.
I mean, we smashed them on the scoreboard, but some visionaries on the pod were saying don't get carried away because that was not a good performance.
It's true, actually. We were lucky in that game. It did flatter us when we started last year. So it's true.
Some of the pod's senior analysts were advising caution, but hopefully it'll be the opposite this year.
Definitely, we're hoping it's that kind of reverse psychology. So I think we are all expecting some kind of business to come in, and even if it's not about improving the team, when you bring in those players, it just gives everybody a bit of a lift and just pushes everybody that bit more. And I think to get this season going, we do kind of need that to have everything going on forward there. But look, like I say, we'll come back in a week. We will have played Luton. I'm personally not too fussed about the cups and all, because I think that we went too strong in a lot of cup matches last year. I really want us to focus on the league because, it's crazy to say it, but since Fergie retired, 7 years, we've not had 2 seasons in a row finishing in the top 4, which is mental. And I see as well a lot of United fans say, listen, top 4 is not enough. We should be going for winning the league. But I say, realistically, we should look at the fact that we've not even had 2 seasons in a row finishing in Champions League places. So that's will be big progress for us to manage that for the first time in 7 years. To finish twice in the top 4 will actually be progress for our club and this team, which is sad to say, but that's the realistic scenario. And I personally hope that we just focus on the league, just get some stability, and then I'd say kind of next year is the year that we would really go for a championship challenge. But look, like I say, we're all pretty gutted. Does it feel like a bit of therapy, Jamie? We normally try and leave it a bit of time after a match to analyse, have a look at a few stats. But today we said, listen, let's just get this pod recorded. Let's get it out there. And for me, it feels like cathartic, like literally like a therapy session, just to get all that kind of anger, whatever, out there.
I feel more calm already. I'm actually now chilled out now after that. But that was bad, but I'm kind of over it now already.
Yeah, that's
it. All right, I'm glad. Well, I'll send you both my therapy bill for the 1 hour session, right? And all the listeners out there, I hope we've kind of helped you get over it as well, and pour out all your grief. But
onwards and upwards.
Let's hope it all gets out in this first week, and we get back on track next week. So I think that's it for us this week, and we'll be back after that Brighton game, and hopefully a bit more positivity to talk about then. Good night from me.
Cheerio.
Good night, troops.
Bradisar saved it. United again. Ready. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.